Testing. Hi, Doug.
Nice. Hi, how are you? Nice to see
Hi, Jim.
Hi.
I'm doing well.
I thought we had to wait. Whoop. Hello.
I didn't know if it'd work. I just said hi.
Last time we had to wait until it was actually 1 o'clock or whatever. But anyway, like looks like we're kind of running.
I think Stephen's logged in with that photograph. I think that's his study.
Ah. Okay.
At least I'm hoping that's what it was.
Or maybe this is an April Fool.
Yeah. Oh my goodness.
Anyway, okay. Well, there's a whole bunch of people that haven't logged on yet, I presume. So, I have an email I'm going to slip away to and answer, and
Sure.
I'll be back.
Okay.
Meanwhile, you can look at the books on my shelf.
Oh my. How are things over there in Nebraska City?
Hey, we're doing fine. Getting tired of being in the cabin all the time. Getting cabin fever, you know.
I go from my garage to the church study with it. Deb and I have been coming to the office doing some stuff here, but we're pretty much the only two that are around.
Yeah.
And that works. That's going good for us.
Yeah, it's good that people are taking the warning to heart.
That's for sure.
So
we have gotten takeout from Pizza Hut and from the Pioneer Inn, but other than that, we're really not going places.
yeah. Did you get out and watch the teachers' parade?
I got caught in the teachers' parade.
Oh.
I'm chaplain for the rural fire department. And
Yeah.
I didn't know that the fire trucks were going to be leading. I missed that somehow. So I'm coming from my home after lunch up to church, and all of a sudden the streets are blocked off and backed up. And it's like, okay, who pulled out from Pizza Hut and got clipped? So I turn around and try to get there because I figure, well, I might be needed with it. And then I realized, okay, there's 70 cars here, all teachers. So I had all to pass, all the fire trucks, a bunch of trooper vehicles. So yeah, it was pretty good.
When was that?
That was
Douglas, when was that?
The teachers around and paraded and went past most of the students' homes to wave at them.
Yeah, but when was that?
That was Tuesday or Wednesday of last week.
Oh, really? People were still gathering in groups, huh?
No. This was by car parade.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, led by our local deputies and the fire company.
Wonderful.
They had a lot of good comments about that. It was pretty nice. And people did congregate on the street corners in family groups of 4 or 5. But it didn't last real long after they all left. Hey, I know that person.
You should know her. Yeah.
Folks, I'm going to ask you to mute yourselves as folks are coming in. Please mute yourself so I don't have to. And we'll get started as people coming in. There's a good number we have registered today, so we'll be waiting a couple minutes. Go ahead. Go ahead and converse. You can converse for a little bit, and then I'll mute you if I need to, or ask you to mute yourself if I need to.
Hello.
Hey, Jane.
Hello.
How are you?
Doing good. Went for a run this morning. Felt good.
Good.
I wish I could run. I used to, and I did too much on concrete. Now I have 2 fake hips.
Yeah, I don't like to run on concrete. I go down to the lake and run the gravel
Yeah, if I had had an orthopedic surgeon give me some advice when I was young, I would never have run on streets. I would have run in parks or someplace on, something softer than concrete, but
Yeah.
broke my hips.
Well, asphalt's better than concrete, so the
Yeah, asphalt's better than concrete, but
still, yeah, no, I like the dirt. Or
yeah.
the track.
Or even though it's a little boring, if you can find a rubber track,
Yeah,
just going around on a 400-meter track.
yeah, and I've done that gig too.
Yeah. Yeah.
Our local schools let us run on the track.
Well, good.
Well, I shouldn't say us. I don't do it. My wife
No.
does.
The proverbial us.
Yeah.
Like the Queen, we are not amused.
Yeah.
And I don't run, I
royalty.
only walk.
Hey, are any of you folks planning on doing drive-in worship with one of these FM transmitters?
What was that?
Are you going to have people come to the church parking lot and transmit through a local radio, an FM transmitter? Have a worship service for people in their cars?
I don't think we've even talked about that. I've heard other, I've read a little bit about that.
I think it could be a neat idea to get people there, but I'm not so sure that this is really the time to try something like that. I have some friends back in Pennsylvania still who are with the 911 system, the supervisors, and they recommend that we don't even get together like that in cars and parking lots. But I've got some folks here at the church who would really like to do that.
I understand that Falls City Presbyterian and Methodist churches are going together to do that in Falls City. But that's all I know.
No. I think we're gonna stick with YouTube. YouTube's working well for us.
Yeah, we've been using Zoom and that's been working.
I've just been recording an abbreviated worship service and message and posting that to Facebook.
You all are sharing. I know others are going to want to hear what you're sharing. So, which is great.
Well, it is one. When I got back, I didn't come in this morning, but I'm at church now, and on my Outlook, there was a message from the General Assembly, and the first article was on doing communion during this time, and I didn't find it all that helpful because it said, two people in ordered ministry, that's a deacon, an elder, or a teaching ruling elder or teaching elder, would take communion, and we can't do that. I didn't find it helpful. I was hoping that maybe they would say the General Assembly says people could put together their own elements at home from the common bread and juice that they may have there at home, and then we could do it that way, electronically. But that was not what was in there.
There's
So
an
I didn't find the article very helpful at all.
there was an advisory, a revised advisory statement that came out a few days ago on the PCUSA website, and one of their little article things that talked about that they had reversed themselves, because I guess at first they didn't like it, but they had reversed themselves, and we're saying specifically what you're talking about, or whatever else anybody could
No,
think
I mean, because I
was okay.
I had, the day after Val left Westminster Church, I had 2 deaths. And I've had to, one I expected, she was in hospice, and I was forbidden from visiting her by the facility. The other was unexpected. He was a 68-year-old. And I've had to deal with the bereaved simply by text and phone calls at this point.
I think that's the best we can do. We'll be together again.
Can you all hear me?
Time, but phone calls and texts,
can't.
that's as good as it gets
Oh.
right now. We can be happy with that.
Hi,
Jimmy,
Kathleen.
with the communion, I understood most anything's allowed as well as you follow close to terms, but the main thing is having the session agree to the alternative means that you conduct the communion.
Well, if no one's going to sue me for heresy, I may suggest that to our elders. Stephen, thank you.
Okay, it is now a little after 1 p.m. There's about 10 more people that have registered that are not on here yet, and then we may have those that did not register. So we're going to go ahead and begin the Zoom forum. If I could ask everybody to mute your selves. Got it? Everybody find their mute button? Jimmy?
Let's see. Trying to find it. I don't
Could be
know how
all
to
right.
do it. Oh, there it is. Okay.
Okay, just hit the mute button. There you go. All right, let's begin with prayer.
Come on, you dumb thing.
Loving and gracious God, these are anxious, stressful, fearful times. And we pray for your presence and your guidance and leading us to serve faithfully. Help us to tend to our flocks, care for those who are still on the margins through this time. And we pray especially for our doctors, our nurses, our healthcare workers, those who are on the front lines of this crisis. Bring us together as your people to serve you faithfully in all that we do. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Okay, thank you, everybody. I am going to just put up the questions that came in from registration. Let me see if I can get that. Technology, it helps at times. There you go. If you look in the chat box, if you can pull up the chat, you'll see the list of questions that folks have raised. Rick Martin are you here with us? Rick Martin? Nope. Well, Rick, a lot of these are on both communion and caring for folks who've had deaths in the family, funerals. How do you do pastoral care at this time? So those are the kind of two areas that have surfaced through the suggestions. The other area I want to throw in there are financial needs of churches. Especially we're getting a lot of information in on the CARES Act and how that will apply to congregations. So I'd like to have a brief discussion about financial needs and how much as a pressure we need to be looking into this with churches. So let's go ahead and begin. Let's take on communion. You were just talking about that. So what are folks doing for communion? Go ahead and wave your hand or unmute yourself and to talk. Go ahead, Tom.
In terms of financial need, is that one of the topics I
Yeah,
heard you?
that will be one of the areas. That will be our third area. We're
Oh,
going
I'm
to start
sorry.
with, that's
I'll
okay.
wait. I'll wait.
Okay, we're going to start with communion. I heard some conversation about that before. How are folks doing it? How are you approaching it? Doug?
I recorded today a virtual communion, and that'll go out later in the week. I remembered the smell and the aroma of baking bread, and I mentioned that a couple of times through the service to prepare people to get ready for it. And we do that, and I remember the growing grapes as a kid, and I talk about that, and popping the grape out of the skin into my mouth, and remembering the taste and sensation of it, and using that as we remember placing ourselves with Jesus and the disciples in the upper room and receiving the bread and the wine from Jesus at that point and taking it that way. Learned to do that in the military in hot zones with it, and it worked pretty well. I hope people will be receptive to it here. I've not done it that way before. We have some folks who would like to have a drive-in worship service and have communion. I'm not real comfortable actually giving out bread and juice at this point in time. I think that's unwise. We can have communion in the normal way we do it after we're able to get back together.
Okay. Someone else want to chip in on how you're doing communion and
I-
how you understand the clerk's authoritative interpretation?
I just want to respond to that. We were talking about doing that with our session, and they suggested that we do a parking lot, but everybody brings their own elements. It's not too different from what Bruce Ray's Chow did. I mean, he
That's
did
an
it.
idea
Yeah.
I've not heard before. Has anybody tried that? Bring your own elements for communion? Is that allowable? Ray, where are you, Mr. Meester, Dr. Meester? Ray?
Yeah, all I can say is to look at, see what the advice is from GA, the revised one, not the first one. I haven't really read that closely because I'm not involved in that now. So I really don't know. If you go to the General Assembly website about the COVID-19 virus, there's all kinds of resources there about worship and communion.
Yeah.
I've read several things on the internet, and I've just visited with Sue Collar a while back. They're doing communion, virtual communion, and everyone's providing their own elements, and then they're taking it together on the Zoom.
Okay, great.
I'm wondering,
Another thing I saw on TV is some church in the United States bought the cups and the wafers all. It's a packet that you can order, and they were
really?
using those.
I've not heard of that before. Where do you order those from someplace, Wendy, or do the church prepare them?
No, you order them. They're already prepackaged.
Wow. Where did you order them from?
I don't know the exact, but it was, you go online, you'll find it. So Tom's waving his hand. Maybe he's Jimmy's got a sign.
yeah, it's a box. It's a box of the Celebration individual communion wafer and juice sets. And we were planning on using these on the first Sunday of April, but since we aren't having service, we just have this box of these. And what it is you have this, and the first flap on the top is there's a wafer underneath, and then you pull the second flap and it's the juice. And at the current moment, we don't have plans on using it since we aren't going to gather at all we're using YouTube. for April 5th, but you know, that's a kind of thing that is available. It's by Compact Companies, www.celebrationcup.com.
You, Jimmy, can you type that in the chat box? That address, that information, and then everybody should be able to see it.
Okay, it's www.com.
Hey, while Jimmy's doing that, is there someone else who'd like to chime? Go ahead. Are you finished, Jimmy?
Yeah, I had a question before Wendy brought that up. I had a question.
Okay.
Technically, does quarterly mean once a quarter, or does it mean 4 times a year? Because at Westminster, we had already had communion 3 times before we halted everything. And so what the session voted to do was just to suspend communion until we can be back together, and presumably we'll be back together before the end of 2020, and we'll have communion together again. But we have already had communion at Westminster in the normal fashion 3 times before we suspended operations.
I would have to say that we have to remember that we're in a crisis, and there's going to be a lot of forgiveness and flexibility.
Thank you, Ray.
If I could, the individual wafer and cup that Jimmy was referring to can be ordered out of the Cokesbury catalog. This is the Cokesbury Essential Supply 2020 catalog, and they're right there on page 7. And they have a couple of 3 options there on that page as well. So that'd be a good place to check it out.
Great. Great resource. Karen.
The challenge about that is they're probably out. We checked into doing that in early March, and our administrative assistant looked at a couple different places for that very thing, and they were completely out. So just so you're prepared, what we're doing at First Christian for Maundy, Thursday, we've been doing a weekly YouTube video. And so we did our video yesterday for Palm Sunday, and I invited everybody then that for Maundy, Thursday, we would share in communion. So I invited them as they prepared to watch the video to gather their own elements, bread and the cup. We were not going to judge whether it was wine or whether it was grape juice. And then to have that, and then I plan to, in our YouTube video then, to do the words of institution and communion, and hope everyone who wants to will join us as they watch the video. That seems the best option. I'm not comfortable either doing a parking lot or doing a group now. So I'm hoping if they want to join us in that, then I've kind of prepared them ahead of time, and we'll make sure that's part of our video. We'll probably do it for the Easter one as well. So that's how. Okay,
great. I'm gonna pause right here for a second. Hey, John Dooling, you got it.
Hi, I finally got on.
Yeah.
I had to cut and paste my thing from a document, and that's how I managed to get into the meeting. I apologize for being late.
No problem. I'm gonna pause this, John. John, hold on just a second, okay? Hold your thought, John Dooling, okay?
Okay, got it.
Because I want to do introductions to everybody. I think we've got new people on the forum that haven't been with us before. So I'm going to start and just ask you to share what church you're connected with, what's your role in the church, and just a quick word about how you're hanging in there, okay? So Tom, we're going to start with you. You're in my first top left corner.
Okay, well, thank you. I am Tom Osborne. I'm a stated supply at the Presbyterian Church in Nebraska City. Everything is going along about as well as we could probably expect at this point. I've been using Facebook Live to provide a midweek devotional service, and then Facebook Live on Sunday mornings for a shortened worship service. And people have responded very well to that. I'm feeling just fine. I'm being very, very careful with my age and my health conditions, and I think we need to all do that. And I'm encouraging people to do that. I had one fellow whose brother passed away, and I was able to converse with him on the phone, and he's well aware of everything, and he's very appreciative. I have an elderly woman who her companion was her pet dog that passed away, and normally I would have gone down to be with her and spend some time, but again, we were able to do it over phone, and then she answered me on the computer that one of the weekly devotions really helped her that day. So we're doing fine and getting along very well.
Great.
In spite of everything.
That's good to hear, Tom. Thank you. Jimmy?
Had to unmute. I'm at Westminster. As of yesterday, I'm the bridge pastor with Val's departure for South Dakota. So I'm on my own at Westminster for now. But you know, we're doing fine. We've come up with some novel things. We used to have a spring cleanup on a Saturday where we would have donuts and coffee, and 30 or 40 people would come and work the grounds. And instead, our building and grounds committee split up the entire campus into zones, and individuals sign up for a zone to rake leaves and spruce up the bushes and whatever in their zone only on their own time, so that they're not working when anyone else is here. And we've got one of our guys that signed up for that is out there right now cleaning up his chosen area of the campus. So you know, that's the sort of thing we're doing. I'm really excited about the response we've had from our preschool director. Had me record, and I think I mentioned that we were going to do this last week, but we recorded the chapel chat songs, and she daily reposts my chapel chat songs with the guitar. It's about 15 minutes long, 10, 12 minutes long maybe. And then she has a Bible lesson, and she reported to me on Tuesday that my song segment each day is getting about 70 hits, and her Bible lesson is only getting 30.
Okay. Great. Thank you, Jimmy. Ray?
Since I'm not pastor at church, I don't have all that stress. So just trying to keep up with the state clerk, working on these rules so we can start having Zoom meetings, which might be rather interesting. And we're going to have the special called meeting tomorrow so that we can put that rule in, so we can authorize the Zoom meetings, and state law allows it too. So, and I'll be talking to you later, Wendy. And
Okay.
doing
Anything
fine.
else, Ray? Great. Okay, Christine, you're next. Christine? Is she there?
Coming there now, that, and I'll stop the video because it doesn't seem to take both. I'm doing just fine. I was feeling very useless as a pastor last week, but then a dear saint in the Lord died, and I had the funeral on Saturday and met with the family on Friday, and we kept it under 10 people, and the church would have been packed if we were all allowed to get together. So I have mailed out the bulletin and sermon to other individuals, and they've appreciated it. And an organist and I are going to try a Facebook recording this Friday for Palm Sunday. We'll see how that goes. Thank you.
Christine, you are still breaking up even on your audio. So just to let you know. Okay. Next, Jane. Jane Holtzclaw.
Yeah, I had to find the unmute button. Yeah, I'm parish associate for Caring Ministry at First Pres Lincoln. And I think things are going pretty well. We've been taping the Sunday morning worship service and then doing Zoom communion afterwards. Well, Sue posts the service starting at 8:30 on Sunday, and then it's up for the rest of the week. And then mid-morning, she's been doing Zoom communion, which I think has been working pretty well.
Good.
During a lot of our Bible studies, we've thrown in some extra Bible studies, all of those things by Zoom, and seems to be going much better than I would have thought, actually.
Great. Okay. Thanks, Jane. Steve, Niles.
Steve Niles at New Zion in Clarkson. I think one of the main things we have been introducing and offering folks, I've been doing some regular different devotions daily, most days I should say. And it's just kind of weird with how quiet the town is and everything closed up. The secretary and I are usually the only ones that are allowed. We're completely closed down. So we've been managing and getting by with things, but getting used to the new normal.
Yeah.
My days all messed.
If you consider this a normal and it's new, definitely.
Yeah. Well, I've had my days all messed up because I didn't have the Sunday routine.
Yeah, right. Thank you, Steve. Wendy.
Hi, I'm Wendy Waite, and I am clerk of session at Gresham, and I'm also serving as Homestead moderator. And I want to tell Steve, thank you for getting these Zoom meetings organized so that people can share. I think the last Zoom call I was on, they talked about communication is so important, and I think somebody here on this call said the same thing. So we just have to keep communicating. Our church has not been doing anything. We have text messaging every week, but we are working on drive-in Easter Sunday service.
Great. Okay. Thank you, Wendy. Allergies are going crazy today, so I don't know if anybody else is affected by them, but anyways, okay. Thank you. Dennis, if you want to go.
Hi there, Dennis Head. I'm retired here in Lincoln, and because my wife gave being a Presbyterian the old college try, we are now going to a church that's more comfortable to her, which is an Episcopal church. So I have another angle on it. Because the church is, they're really at sea because they celebrate the Eucharist weekly. So they're sort of holding their breath, waiting until they can figure out something again. But they're relying on Facebook Live for Sunday morning prayer now. We've had one session of that, and we're about to go into the next one, and we'll see how that works. I'm also leading an adult class via Zoom that is quite popular. It's very good. And today we received a very interesting snail mail note from the church saying, we care and we're here even though we're not open. A nice handwritten note from one of the vestry members. So it doesn't all have to be electronic. But anyway, but Audrey and I are hanging in. Audrey works from home, so our general routine is not greatly altered.
Okay.
Dennis, can I just say, Dennis, I'd like to say, give Mother Amanda my best.
I will.
I mean, we're neighboring churches, just a couple blocks.
3 blocks away.
3 blocks away, right?
I will.
Okay. Thank you, Dennis. John Ashley. Can you unmute? There you go.
John Ashley, I'm a pastor at Fremont Presbytery Church, and I was out of town for the first week when all this started to unfold, and so coming back after most everything was closed down and most things at church had been canceled, and trying to get caught up was especially challenging last week. It feels sort of like we're learning to fly an airplane while it's in the air and already on its way. And yet a year ago when we had the flooding in the Fremont area, we sort of went through a similar experience. And so I think that's helped our church leadership and our staff adjust to this season now. But it seems to change so fast, and you get the information and make a plan, and then the information changes, and you have to go to plan B or C or D. So we're all experiencing that. We're streaming everything now, or using Google Meet or Zoom for group gatherings. We're not doing obviously any group gatherings, and we've had some pretty good success with that, with especially our kids and youth and college groups, and quite a few adult committees and teams, including our disaster response task force, are all meeting electronically and making some good progress, I think, as far as staying connected, but we know there's lots of challenges ahead.
Great. Thank you, John. Good to see you. Dwayne. Dwayne, you're muted. Hold on.
Sorry about that. Yeah, you surprised me. I didn't know it was my turn. Yeah, been really busy and other kinds of things. We have first of all, I want you to pray for my daughter Annie. We're really concerned about her. She's an RN on the streets, ministering to the folks, the homeless in Seattle, and she's surrounded by the virus. And so if you would pray for her, I'd appreciate that.
What's her name, Dwayne? What's your
Annie?
Annie?
Annie,
okay.
yeah.
Hold on, just Kathleen, are you taking notes for us again? Kathleen Splett.
I am. I'm a little distracted because I just got word of a funeral or a death in the church session member's spouse about an hour ago. So I'm doing it. Hopefully it'll be okay. I got in a little bit late too.
Wendy, would you mind serving as a backup for Kathleen and taking notes? Like, but I'm particularly interested in the prayer concerns that are coming up. And Dwayne just mentioned his daughter in Seattle. So if you could, one or two of you could keep that train going, that'd be great. Sorry, Dwayne, for interrupting.
That's all right. And I've been emailing my sermons and then taking around sermons. About half our folks don't have computers, so I take a walk around and drop it off their doorways. And there's been a lot of people out in this nice weather, so I've been able to walk around town and fellowship with most, a lot of my members just that are out working in their yards, and I stay a good distance away. I understand that the virus, that the sun is deadly for the virus. So I think being outside is a pretty healthy thing because the virus doesn't live very long when the sun hits it. Also, just a lot of help with the community here through our ministerial association, financial help and working with that. And then just a note, Interchurch Ministries Nebraska has received some extra money to help people, which is definitely needed with our hotline. So that's about it.
Okay, and plans for retirement are still progressing, Wayne?
Yeah. Oh, well, also in Pawnee City, I kind of in the pastor to a lot of people that are not members of our church, and the city gave me a long list of folks that are shut in that they're concerned about during this time to make sure they're okay. So I've been going around either calling or knocking on doors and just checking on those folks.
Great, thank you. That's really an important ministry there. Okay, thank you, Dwayne. Heidi.
Sorry, always takes a moment to find the mute. Heidi Wallace, pastor, First Presbyterian and Bethany Lutheran Lions. Feeling better about things today. Spent 3 hours in conference calls this morning with colleagues planning what Holy Week looks like this week, and now with plans in place, that feels a whole lot better. So that's good to have that checked off, and then I can concentrate on other things. I'm with you today as far as the allergies. So, but yeah, otherwise, trying to do a lot of phone calls, and especially right now, I have a number of people in the hospital for surgeries for other reasons, and yeah, hard not to be there, but learning to be present how I can be. And otherwise, I don't know, losing track of days.
Yeah, that's easy to do in some ways, especially if you're on Zoom calls all day, every day.
Mm-hmm.
All right, thank you, Heidi. Doug.
Solo pastor in Fairbury. I've been recording sermons and abbreviated services. I don't have music with it, and I'm certainly not going to sing a solo. I'd like people to stay and hear the rest of what I have to say on it, so I don't sing. But I upload those onto 3 different Facebook pages, my own page, our church page, and then a Fairbury community page as well. Starting to learn about YouTube and channels and that, and our church may end up with a YouTube channel for itself. We just got a very nice streaming video camera that looks like it'll meet a lot of our needs. So we are going to be more involved with Facebook Live. I've been doing that for a year just with a person holding this on the tripod about 30 feet from the pulpit. So sometimes it's a real good image and video, other times it's not. It's been okay for us, but we want to do better on that and have people available to respond to people's comments and the hearts and the thumbs up and all that kind of stuff as well. So we're looking to do that more. We're going to get a small group together, hopefully later this week, and do a Facebook Live service for this Sunday and Easter Sunday. If we can get a hold of an FM transmitter, we may have people come into our church parking lot, and I'll be out front and broadcast into their radios with it. So things we're looking to try. We also have our entire congregation divided up amongst all of our deacons. Each one has about a dozen people, and we're trying to call people 2 times a week or so, just keeping in touch. We've managed to move a mailbox or so to get some people's groceries and meds and other things to come up and do some yard work for folks who shouldn't be out. So all in all, we're doing all right. We realize it's just going to be a short period of time, all in all, until we can be back together again. And then we're going to go back and celebrate together these Sundays that we're missing on the Christian calendar year, doing by video.
Okay, great. Thank you, Doug. Kathleen.
Well, like I said, I just got word that one of our session members' spouses died this morning. And I'm not sure how to manage that. Jim talked to her and set up an appointment to go visit them. And I'm not real comfortable with that, but I don't know what to do. So I need to call the funeral home and see what they've been doing. And I see you waving, Douglas. Wait a minute. And I'll let you respond. That'll be great. I already told her that I didn't think we could do a funeral with more than 10 people on maybe a graveside with just family or something. But I was just initial. It was such a shock to even hear that he had died, because he was very vital. There was no indication that he was ill. And this wasn't COVID, it was something else. So that's kind of where I'm at. I've been recording a 25-minute approximately service for Sundays, and I am singing on it because that's what I'd rather do than preach. And posting that, I posted it on Facebook the first week. Second week, I posted it on Facebook and YouTube. I've never heard of Facebook Live. I don't know what that is, so I'm anxious to hear from somebody what that is. And that's
okay. Thank you, Kathleen. Douglas, you had a comment or question?
A comment, please. Kathleen, do these folks have a front porch? If they do, you can sit there with them. Put 2 chairs 6 or 8 feet apart from one another and visit that way. My wife has done that, and I'm doing that a little bit with some people too, and that works well.
Okay,
thank you.
Thank you. Helpful. Rick Martin, good to see you. Your turn. Unmute.
Okay, welcome. It's good to see everyone, and thank you for this venue. It's been very helpful to hear your comments. I serve as pulpit supply for First Presbytery in Falls City and Humboldt. The Humboldt congregation, 2/3 do not have automation. So I've been talking on the phone to them mostly. I did my first Facebook Live last week for the Falls City Church. We'll have a midweek devotional, and then hopefully we're entertaining Zoom, but I would like to maybe ask a question on the social media sites that you find more worthwhile. Zoom or YouTube is better. One problem I do have is we have a great library of music that has been previously played, and I'd like to play that during the Facebook Live, but I can't call up that digital video and then have Facebook upload it. So maybe that can be done better with Zoom. I'm not sure, but any insight on that would be beneficial. Thank you.
Does anybody have a helpful comment for Rick on that? Karen?
What we've been doing is we are doing a YouTube video because I hate doing video anyway, and I don't like the pressure of it being live. So we're one take wonder so far. We can do it in one take, but we're doing that, and then we're sending out we're doing a worship bulletin kind of newsletter every week, and we send that out digitally and also in the mail, and we include in that links to music. So we're intentionally trying to tie some music to the worship experience. So we put in some links of pieces we think would be appropriate or would fit the theme. And then our organist our music director has been here, so we film it in our chapel. So it's usually just whoever's videoing for us, and him and I, and then we did have one elder helping yesterday. But that way they can look at the music links, but you don't have to try to integrate it into the actual video that you make. And then about the funeral thing, I have my second funeral in 2 weeks. I had one last week and one this week of 2 very well-loved members of the church, long time members of the church. And the funeral homes are working with people a little bit, but they're really, at least in Lincoln, they're really encouraging people to simply do a graveside service. But last week, we were a little bit smidgy over the 10. So I think this week they're being much more stringent with the families, trying to really urge them to keep the number of participants to 10 or under. And so I've just added 1 or 2 maybe more scriptures, but it's still only 10 or 15 minutes long. But my concern is trying to figure out how to help the congregation in their grief, because they can't participate in the ritual that is part of that grieving process. And so that's kind of where I didn't expect to have 2 deaths in 2 weeks. I hope that's all, but we'll see. So those are some of the ways we're kind of trying to work with the different things. And we have talked about maybe doing just a special video or doing something special about grief to help talk to the congregation about how they're dealing with the loss of these really key people. So.
Okay, thank you, Karen. Rick, were you finished sharing? Okay, thank you. I think John Dooling, you're next.
Hello, everybody. I'm parish associate over at the Eastridge Presbyterian Church, and my function had been pastor visitation, but now it's pastor by phone or email. I'm assisting the deacons in making calls, and that has been a delightful experience, just to be in conversation with some of the people, and they are visibly moved. I have just general conversation with them and ask for whatever they may have in need of a prayer. And in the process of offering the prayer, it can be a very emotionally moving experience. So in terms of worship, we are doing Facebook Live, and we are live streaming. We have a person that thankfully is able technologically to record a lot of special music that our director of music has been able to copy, and that we will use. We're going to do the virtual communion on Monday, Thursday, each of us sitting around our table with our particular elements and working together in communion together.
Are you doing that live, John? Are you doing that live? The virtual communion?
Yes, but each will have his or their elements of their own, whether it's wine or grape juice or apple juice, I don't know, with their stuff. Then so many things, of course, done by Zoom. I'm working on getting a men's group that has met for coffee on Tuesday mornings, that we're going to Zoom and just have our BS. Then that's not Bible study. So it's a good time of fellowship, and we'll be working together on that. Our Stephen ministers will be Zooming and doing our training and checking in. I do spiritual direction by Zoom anymore, or by Skype, and that's where I've been right now.
Okay, great. Thank you, John. Pastor Lee,
Hello.
your turn.
Hello, everybody.
Hello.
How are you? I'm sorry for my bad English. I'm not sure everybody understand my English. So I pray that God, Holy Spirit, translate you, everybody. So,
Amen.
Amen. I am a pastor of Lincoln Korean Church. I came here last June. So this June will be 1 year. I actually came here as a senior pastor, but my Korean church, long time without pastor, so we are processing as a senior pastor doing that. So I am very happy to meet my congregation all. We are now on online service worship from March 15. It's been 2 weeks. I'm not used to Zoom or computer or something. I don't like machine. I don't like computer, but I have to do. So actually every Saturday I worship at my church recording on Saturday. I have a very a very good musical instrument. So I'm trying to do hymn and pray and sermon and then recording, and then Saturday night or Sunday morning, we put on Lincoln Korean Church homepage. So everything is right. I concerned about some elderly people they working on, but they also very good. Husband and people, young people helping together. So I checked how many people watching online service. Last week, 77 people watched, and the last May 29, 55, May 22nd, I'm sorry, March 22nd, 77. So far so good, but I hope everything will be all right, and I like to meet together. Actually, I plan to meet men's group or women's group, but I cannot do. So I hope everything will be right. And happy news is my daughter. She's graduating at this May, University of Michigan. I concerned about very much about her job situation, but thankfully she got a good company, California Cisco company, network company. So it's very good news. So I'm very happy to hear that. So far so good, and I'm calling to everybody every week. So I'm getting used to do. Thanks so much.
Thank you, Pastor Lee. It's great to have you with us.
Pastor Lee, Pastor Lee, have you suspended the Friday night college kids right now?
Yeah, thank you for asking. Every Friday night, 20 or 25 young Korean international student, we have meeting on church, but unfortunately, because of virus, many Korean students went back to Korea. Also, some Korean students still here, but we just talking on the phone, not meeting at church.
Okay, thank you for sharing that. Yeah. Okay, Katie Betzinger. Oh, that's Darren.
As you can tell, my daughter is back. She's at Duke Divinity and not at Duke Divinity right now. They've since suspended, so she's with me and doing her stuff online solely. So my study is not my study anymore, and that's okay. We adjust. Darren Benzinger, Panama. Things seem to be moving along like everybody else. We're doing Facebook Live. Been some really positive things that happened with that. I think we'll probably be doing that every Sunday after this is over. Learning some new ways to outreach. There's quite a learning curve on the electronics. I love electronics, but I don't love Windstream, but it's the only thing we have to offer. So we're having some struggles with turns out it comes in pretty fast, but it doesn't come out very fast. So we're having to figure out how to do appropriate video, really having some struggles with that. But I finally think we've figured it out using some other avenues. One of the things I guess that I really love all of the ideas for Holy Week and those. I really think we're probably going to wait until this is over before we have Easter the first Sunday back. We'll do the whole Easter Sunday thing, make a big deal out of it. We're trying to be creative though for Palm Sunday, where everybody in town, because our town is pretty small. Actually, our congregation is over half of it is outside of Panama, but because we're not far from Lincoln. But I think what we're going to do is, so my daughter Katie's going to preach this weekend for fulfillment of one of her requirements for school. And then we're going to have people line up in cars and we're going to go through town honking horns and singing Hosanna and handing out my daughter will have gloves on, and we'll be handing out palms to people as they come out of their houses. I think we got a plan maybe for a pickup that we might put a donkey image on either side just to have some fun. I think we need some fun, and I don't know. I don't know about you, but I'm fairly going stir, and that's okay. I can live with that. But you know, it's going fine otherwise. We're trying to maintain communications. We're doing the best. I'll tell you the one thing though, that I don't know about the rest of you, but this first couple weeks, I felt a lot of pressure on me to maintain contact and to get out there. And I've been really appreciative of my congregation. They've already been communicating with each other and have developed that community. And I'm very appreciative for how the Spirit has worked in the midst of all of this. We simply try to facilitate that and to say, hey, if there's anything you need, we can be the funnel. But if you've got a neighbor or you've got a friend from church, give them a call. And they're, everybody in our congregation, and I'm sure yours, we just say, there isn't anybody really that's unwilling to help. So I think that's kind of drawn us together as a congregation, as a community. So I'm kind of feeling better about where that's going to be. But I'm really ready for that light at the end of the tunnel, but I'm afraid it's going to be for another month or two before we can do that.
Thank you, Darren. Zach.
Zach serving Beatrice. I'm actually really excited and really energized by this time. I'm having a lot of fun with what's going on. And and our church is connecting and trying to connect with people.
Glad to have you here. You're having fun. Okay, Sue.
There we go. It took me a while to get connected as well today. I had to have Jess send me a new link, but I was listening by phone before that. An idea that you might want to think about for those who can't go to funerals. Encourage your congregation to create pages that could ultimately go in a scrapbook for the family. I think write down memories, stories, those sorts of things, the things that we often would hear in visitation. Encourage people to write them down, collect them in a central place, let the family have them. And then when we finally get back to be together, not only will we have Palm Sunday and Easter, but you can have an early All Saints Day and remember all of those who have been a part of our congregation and have gone home to the Lord in this time. So those are a couple of ideas I thought of as we were chatting today. The disaster team has divided up the churches, the pastors, and the clerks of session. If you haven't, you should be getting a phone call. They very excitedly have taken up that project, and we're keeping track of what's going on with people and praying with people and so forth. And then wearing dual hats with Committee on Ministry, keeping up with some people in that manner as well. So I don't have to wonder what to do with my time, but I agree we need to have some fun. And one of my most fun right now, I've been designated as the listener to the Alaska kids when it's their time to read for school. So they call me and Grandma Sue gets to listen to them read, and that makes a pretty cool day.
Right. Thank you, Sue. Who has anybody not had a chance to share yet? I think we have. Okay, where our time is starting to get limited, but I wanted to check conversation on funerals and pastoral care. That was one of the highlighted topics. Does anybody want to jump in on that for a couple minutes about what's working? How are you handling doing funerals? That kind of thing. We've heard some things already. Anybody? Want more time? Okay. I would like to go to finances because I don't know if you've been watching, if you've been listening to the news or getting any emails on it. The new CARES Act, has anybody started exploring that and how it might function with your church? Okay. I'm going to open it up in a minute. The Presbytery is doing that as well, to figure out how we can help churches through this and actually looking at it for ourselves in terms of some of the payroll and family leave time. So what are you're seeing are financial needs, one, in your congregations, as well as how do you see yourself in terms of responding to the financial aid that's coming through the government? Tom, you had your hand up.
Yes, we are very much aware of the pinch that it's going to place upon us as in a financial situation. And we've already been to the bank and talked to them about the CARES program and found out what we need to do. So you need to go to your local bank, probably the one that you're banking with, and talk to them. They've got forms to fill out. We were told that it's first come, first served. And some people are probably not going to be happy because they sit back and wait to see if it's going to really happen. But those who really get in there and go through the work to get it done, we had an electronic session meeting to approve going ahead, filling out the papers. It is going to be granted as a loan, but there are certain criteria that if you meet them over a period of weeks, it becomes a grant that you don't have to pay back. And so we're already in the works of applying for $5,000. And there's different things that you want to indicate are your need, your greatest need financially, and then they'll work with that and help you get the process through to get it going.
The challenge there, though, Tom, is I understand it. The regulations have not all come out yet on rules and regulations on these specific things. So each, from what Cheryl, our treasurer, and I are finding out, is that different banks are handling it differently. So one of our banks, the Bank of the Presbytery, is ready to jump in with us. But the bank that First Pres in Lincoln uses is not. They're still figuring it out. So it could be a different experience depending upon the bank that you're using. What I would ask is that churches that are applying through this initiative to let us know in the Presbytery office. It would help us greatly to know which churches are applying for federal assistance through that program, just to keep track, not as a way of regulating, but as a way of just keeping informed of what you're all doing. Okay. Who else? John Ashley?
Sure. Yeah, we had can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. We had a special session meeting last night, and this was on our agenda to learn about the CARES Act and what programs are available. And our session agreed to pursue the application process with our bank, local bank. And the one question that we had was, does this, and I know this came up at the Calvin Crest board also, does the payroll protection loan fall into the category of where a local church needs Presbytery approval to move forward with that, or in an emergency situation, is that, I'm assuming it's allowed for us to move forward just to keep Presbytery informed that we're doing so? Is that? Okay.
That's a good question. And hold on just a second, Ray. I see you, Ray. Hold on. It's a good question. Currently, our Presbytery has taken no action on that. We are focusing on helping Calvin Crest apply for a loan right now. But we have not taken any kind of regulatory stance from the Presbytery. Ray, you want to say something?
Yes. They've been asking General Assembly staff about that. And basically, the only time you really need to have a loan approved by the Presbytery is when you're going to, the term they use, encumber the property. In other words, it's going to be a mortgage.
That's right.
And so the unofficial interpretation right now is presbyteries do not have to give permission for these particular loans. Now, of course, each presbytery could do it differently, but again, it's a crisis. We're going to forgive, I hope.
Right. And as I said, this presbytery has taken no regulatory action on that in terms of expectations to get our approval. We just want to be informed so that we can be helpful if something runs awry, because you can apply for the loans, which would be great, but if some reason you have to pay back that loan and you can't, it comes to where? The presbytery. So that's why we want to just be informed of what churches are doing. Okay. Who else had a comment on that? Zach?
Can I ask a question? Can I ask a question? Is it a question of, do we have, are there any churches, could the Presbytery kind of organize this in some way to see if churches with large endowments would be willing to give some sort of loan to other churches or something like that, to where it wouldn't have to get so bureaucratic, but then we'd have churches supporting each other in that case?
We can check. I've not heard of that being done. I don't know. It would be something to explore. Our business and finance committee is meeting on Monday, and I can ask them that question. I mean, those of you in larger churches, is that something you'd be interested in?
Well, the thing I want to add to that too is that the advantage of the CARES Act is that some of these loans are going to be grants, but so that's going to be a little bit different.
Go ahead, Zach.
I'll go on record and say that we aren't a big church, but we have a pretty sizable loan, a pretty sizable endowment, and I would go to my session and ask if we'd be willing to support financially hurting churches.
As a loan, Zach, or as a grant?
Well, personally, I would go and suggest that we help that we give it as a grant, because it's us sharing the resources and gifts that God has given us with those in need. Would my session go for that? I don't really know, but that's where I would sit. If we can help a couple churches and it doesn't immensely hurt us in our endowment, then that's part of being the body of Christ.
My initial reaction is that it'd be easier to do it if churches that had endowments like that wanted to do that. It'd be easier to do it as a grant than as a loan, just in terms of paperwork and bureaucracy.
Oh, absolutely. I agree as well. I also don't know though how many sessions you're going to convince just to give part of your endowment away.
I hear you. Any other thoughts, comments about finances? Jimmy?
At Westminster, we have a separately incorporated endowment board, the foundation, and the session doesn't actually seem to control what they choose, and I would really hesitate to speak on their behalf. There's sometimes some conflict between the session and the foundation.
I've had, I know that road, yes. Yeah. Anybody else comment? Sue?
Do you have the information about the CARES Act on the website under the COVID resources so churches can go there?
It is, the link to the PCUSA COVID is there, and they have just put up a heck of a lot more information. I spent probably about 4 hours in different Zoom calls and webinars on this yesterday. I've got another one coming up after this. So we're trying to get as much information as we can right now on how the presbytery can be supportive, facilitative, as well as looking at it for ourselves. Are any churches with staff, and those of your pastors include as staff, being affected financially by this? Do you see yourselves being in a place where you may have to think about cutting hours of staff people or anything like that?
I'd be a little surprised if that doesn't become an issue if this goes on much longer in both of our churches. Well, especially Laurel. Laurel has, but I think in both churches. And on a different topic, I'm having trouble getting the session to even meet because they don't have good internet connection. So I don't even know how to have a session meeting and get a session decision made. It's hard.
Right. That is a tough one. I don't know. Okay. Anybody else comments? Doug?
We had a session meeting in our social hall and we had 2 to a table, took up the entire social hall, and it worked just fine for us that way. We were 10 feet or more apart from each other doing that. Financially, we're okay for a very short term, but it will have to be, we will need to take a look at the salaries.
But you all have an endowment too, right?
We do, but it's not easily touched.
I know, but this is an emergency crisis situation. How about you all at Westminster, Jimmy?
Yeah, I weighed in and said that I wouldn't dare to speak for the foundation because I've only been here a little over 3 years, and I have previously found that the session and the foundation don't always see eye to eye.
Right. My question though, Jimmy, is not on the giving to other churches, but your staff situation and how you're.
I think we're okay for at least the 1st of August.
Okay.
I think, and before Val left, she got the session to say, yeah, we're going to keep the staff on salary, including our preschool. The preschool does have a limited flow of grant money that is not affected by whether they're in session or not at this point. So hopefully we can retain all staff. We're hoping, and
Okay.
we have a very large staff. If you count
Yeah.
the preschool teachers, I mean it's
that's why
maybe the largest staff in the Presbytery. So.
Okay, John, Ashley, how about you all? John, Ashley, yeah.
Regarding our staff.
Yeah, and your financial situation.
We haven't, so far through the end of March, we're pretty close to on budget. But April's going to be the big question. Without having meetings and worship times, we'll see how that goes. Our stewardship committee is looking at everything and personnel, and they're all working on Plan B and C if we need to adjust. Hopefully, the PPL loan will provide kind of a bridge if we see our giving drop, if families are impacted to the extent they're not able to fulfill their normal giving patterns, then we'll adjust, but we'll kind of see how things unfold here.
Okay, thanks. Anybody else that want to come in on the financial situation? John Dooling?
Rich, just basically Melody had the backing of the session to say that all staff are covered. I would say at least safely through April.
Okay. Do you know if you all are considering getting financial assistance through this CARES Act? Okay.
I don't know.
One of the things that I'm going to be doing over the next couple of weeks is calling each pastor and commission pastor and pastoral supply about, just as a pastoral care, but second, to check in on the financial situation, to make sure that financial needs are being met in churches and how the Presbytery can help and coordinate, like Zach's idea. So expect a call. There are 80, I think, of you all, pastors and church leaders out there. So it's going to take me a little bit of time, but Sue's got the disaster team making calls, and then CON liaisons should be making calls as well. So we hope that that's happening. A couple other pieces of information. As you know, we're going to continue the Zoom call on Wednesdays at 1. If you can encourage your colleagues in your areas and regions to join us, I think it'd be great to have more folks on. Ray is working, as he said, on the virtual Presbytery meeting. Ray, do you want to say anything more about the meeting tomorrow or the Presbytery meeting coming up?
Not really. We'll hoping that at the council meeting we can use that as a mini Presbyterian meeting, and how we're going to be using Zoom after tomorrow's meeting. If the standing rule is approved, I'll be emailing that to everybody. It's got the specific ways of how to make motions and vote and make interrupting motions and whatnot. And I don't know, maybe we can have a training session right before the Presbytery meeting that everybody can participate in, just to kind of get the hang of it. Still working on it.
Thanks, Ray. One of the other things I've been on calls about as well is the General Assembly meeting this summer in June in Baltimore. Will most likely not happen in Baltimore. Baltimore's convention center is being used as a hospital right now. So they're exploring doing it virtually. And the Presbytery, the Synod of Lakes and Prairies has agreed to be the test body for doing a virtual General Assembly. I don't know how that's going to work, so we may be calling people in to help us do this testing of doing a virtual General Assembly, which, you know, could include up to 1,000 people on a Zoom call. So they're figuring that out, and more news will be coming out about that as well. Any last minute comments or questions? Oh, one other thing. I'm going to be, I see hands, hold on just a second. I'm going to be inviting several folks that have been a part of the Zoom calls to do some facilitating of these calls in the future. So it's not just my voice that you hear a lot. If I call and invite you, I hope I get a good response. Thanks. Okay, Doug, we're going to have to wrap this up pretty quickly. So I saw Doug's hand and Dwayne's hand.
Zach and Beatrice has been able to put together really good videos, stitching a lot of videos together to broadcast their worship service on a YouTube channel. Zach, I'd like to ask if you would make a pamphlet or a page. Tell us how you're stitching the various videos together to do what you're doing. I'd like to blatantly plagiarize that. It's really well done. It's nice, and I don't know how to do it yet.
Now, I just wanted to say that concerning General Assembly, it may be a different platform than Zoom because of it being such a huge group.
Right, right.
Yeah. I just wanted to mention that leader-wise, the counseling service we use has a thing like this on Thursdays at noon that's been very helpful to me.
Yes. Yeah, I'm being a part of that. Okay, Tom?
I'd like to second the motion that Doug made. If Zach would be willing to do that for us, I would sure appreciate that help too. One of the things I've been really appreciative of, I was thinking, gosh, if this had been 50 years ago, I wouldn't have been able to be in contact with people like we are. I'm so thankful we have all this technology. We can still connect and talk to people and minister to them in ways that were never possible before. So I'm grateful for that.
Thank you. Zach, I'm going to check with Zach on the requests that have been made.
I'm sorry, I got a call from my wife, so it froze me out of everything. So all I did, I got back with Tom saying, I second that if Zach would do that for me. So I don't know.
Okay, Doug.
I don't know what had been seconded.
Doug, what do you say that again for Zach?
Zach, you've been able to have on your YouTube channel a series of videos stitched together to make one video. Would you make a pamphlet or a page up to tell us how you're able to do that? I'd love to do what you're doing here, but I don't have a clue on how to combine different individual videos.
Yes. Yes,
Thank
I
you.
will. In fact, I'm exploring a different program this week that my brother out of New York suggested that would be free. So if it's easy to use, if I find out this week it's easy to use, I'll be happy to create something for people to go and download it and use it.
Thank you.
That would be great, Zach. And we can post that on our website as well and send it out through Homestead.
Yep.
That'd be great. Thank you. I see Karen's hand.
I have a quick pastoral request. Many of you know Jim Goebel, who's a retired pastor in our Presbytery. He lives at Gramercy, and he had to go to the hospital briefly today, not COVID, thank heavens. But his birthday is Saturday, the 4th, and he's been pretty stressed out, not understanding kind of what all's happening. So if people could send him a card or something, I think that would be really nice. And if you want the address, I'd be happy to provide that for you. But I just think if some other people in the Presbytery besides just me could contact him, I think that would mean a lot.
Thank you, Karen. I know that Ramona Meester has been contacting all of our HRs. I think she's contacted Jim as well.
Yes,
So,
I asked him about that, and yes, she did, and that meant a lot to him to get that call. So
great. Okay.
just
And
stop
I'll be calling too sometime.
Wonderful. That would be great. Thank you.
Anybody else? Any last minute thoughts? I'm going to ask Jane Holtlaw if you would mind leading us in prayer at the end of this. And same time next week, okay? Jane, are you willing? Got to unmute yourself.
I'm unmuted. Our Heavenly Father, we thank you for the advent of the technology that enables us to meet together, to problem solve together in this unusual time. Be with us as we go out to our congregations, that we may more fully meet the needs of the congregants, that we may continue to serve you and guide others as well during this time when communication is limited and the ability to get together in person is very limited. We ask that you bring your healing mercies upon the doctors and nurses who are treating patients who are ill, and also bring your guidance to our leaders as they guide us both from the church, the state, the nation, and other countries through this unprecedented time. We ask all of this in the name of your Son, our Lord Jesus Christ. Amen.
Thank you all. We'll see you next week or in between. Bye. Thanks.
Bye.